I could see myself becoming passionate about Hagrid. Keep Hagrid at Hogwarts.
I could see myself becoming passionate about Hagrid. is a line from my fanfic.
The chapter titles were so good.
Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Chapter 4. The Keeper of the Keys.
I don't think Hagrid actually does anything. I think he's not clear on what his job title is, because he refers to himself alternately as Keeper of Keys and Grounds, Keeper of Keys, and Gamekeeper. None of those things make very much sense, because you don't need a person to, hold on to the keys, and if you do, you don't give that to some guy who lives out in a cabin on the outskirts of campus. If you're going to look for someone to keep the grounds, so to speak, at a gigantic magical castle with sprawling lawns and whatnot, you want that to be a person who can do magic. A person who can do magic would be far better equipped to do the duties that he is supposed to do.
They also have Mr. Filch, a squib, on as nanny or whatever he is. I mean, he just sort of cleans.
So you're saying we should fire them both?
No, so I'm saying they should, just because somebody can do something with magic easier, that doesn't mean that you have to get someone who can do magic just for efficiency's sake. You can also just be nice to the people who can't do magic and give them jobs where they don't have to use magic, which is clearly what Dumbledore has done with the two of them.
Well, I suspect that Hagrid doesn't keep the grounds. I suspect that's house elves. I think the house elves are doing Hagrid's work, and Hagrid is just...
You just think he's lying? You think he just has a job and then just goes and coerces the house elves into doing it, and then receives his room and board for free, basically?
Well, I don't think it takes much coercion.
That's true. I believe.
And I don't think this is something Dumbledore doesn't know. I think Dumbledore's in on this little lie, too. He's telling the Ministry that he's groundskeeper. I'm pretty sure Dumbledore knows that he doesn't do anything.
No one person's gonna keep the grounds at Hogwarts. Who mows the lawn?
You could argue with Dumbledore's decision to have him do these things, but I don't know. I thought the original argument was that he doesn't do anything.
Well, yeah, exactly. I seriously doubt.
I mean, I think he does.
What are these keys that he keeps anyway?
Exactly.
They're clearly important because...
Keys to what?
I was just going to point out the thing with the chapter titles. It has been acknowledged that there are great chapter titles in these books and that they relate very heavily to the actual books. They're not,
Except this one.
It's the fourth chapter of the entire series. I'm pretty sure it's something very important that he does, keeping the keys.
Well, it's a sort of metaphorical duty that he lets Harry into Hogwarts, and he lets students in general into Hogwarts. Hogwarts.
That's actually something I never considered, that, Harry's wealth of magical protection all relies in Petunia, and that had she died of any sort of reason, that would have gone. That's sort of an interesting thing to think about, that, good thing she didn't get cancer.
Well, actually, the Death Eaters could have come for Petunia, because she's not protected.
But I think their house was, sort of. I thought Voldemort wasn't able to find Privet Drive at all.
No. I don't know. I don't think that's the Fidelius thing. I don't think Dumbledore Fidelius anybody regarding Privet Drive. The protection, it seemed more metaphorical, but at the same time, obviously, it was literally Voldemort couldn't kill Harry for that reason, because of the love power. Because with the Fidelius power, when you do that, you can coerce the secret keeper into giving up the secret and then find the house. So maybe in this instance, they could coerce Petunia into giving up her power by killing her, and then they would be able to get at Harry. Fine. Somebody should have told Voldemort this, during the Battle of Hogwarts. No, I guess he didn't. He didn't understand the power of love.
He just doesn't get it.
Someone ought to show him.
Come on, Voldemort. Just come watch some TV with us. We'll just have a conversation. We'll just eat some food.
It's not saying much since we're only 4 chapters in, but this is so far my least favorite chapter.
Really?
It's weird because I remember it being this very well done, intriguing hook into this wizarding world, yet here reading it, it just seems not very good. There's Hagrid's description of Voldemort as a wizard who went bad.
That was really annoying on JK's part, her putting that giant ellipsis between wizard who went and bad. I really disagree with their creative decision on that point.
There's also the capitalization of dark side.
That's I don't like that.
Really, like, it's a little too close to Star Wars or something when you're gonna, like, talk about good and evil and such. It's a wizard who went bad to the dark side.
To be fair, Voldemort wouldn't disagree, I don't think. He called himself the Dark Lord Voldemort.
It's just such a simplistic, childish term, in my opinion.
So an evil leader can rule the world and can say, I'm an evil person and I'm going to do evil things, and you're going to say, nah, those aren't evil. You're more complex than that.
The thing is, like, that specifically evokes Star Wars, in my opinion. Well, I mean, because in Star Wars, there's the Force, and the Force has a dark side. And when you say the dark side of the Force, you're not talking about people doing bad things with the Force. You're talking about, like, a thing that exists. There is a dark side. And there isn't any such thing with magic, and I like to think of magic as, like, a neutral thing that people use in bad ways or in good ways. And magic isn't like this, like, here's the dark side, here's the light side, and we're going to teach you the light side, and you'd better stay away from the dark side. I don't like to think of magic in Harry Potter in terms of the simplistic view of the Force.
I understand that, except all of the books, though, are about there is a genuine evil force of wizards, and they are bad people who want to have power and only power and will kill people to get it, and they're led by this specifically evil guy who wants to take over the world. How is that much different?
No. I mean, the thing is, Star Wars sort of takes the view that there aren't bad people. There is this bad force that corrupts people. This bad thing that is outside of people that corrupts them. Whereas in Harry Potter, it's the darkness within a person that sort of manifests itself as in these evil deeds.
I disagree that exists in Harry Potter. For another example, besides Voldemort, Snape, it could be argued that his fatal flaw, he was seduced by the dark arts. It's pretty explicitly stated that, like, he loves Lily, but he also loves dark magic.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
But then again, maybe in Star Wars, maybe that's just Star Wars' way of describing it, and maybe in both cases there is just magic that exists. And people try to identify in different ways why people do bad things, and some people say they were seduced by the dark side. I think it's reasonable that Hagrid at least would call it a dark side, because that's how he sees it, because he wants to fight for the good guys, so he fights for Dumbledore.
Yeah, now that you've stated it that way, that it's reasonable that Hagrid would say it that way, I will actually go back on everything I said before about it being sort of lame and childish to introduce us to it this way, because it's also totally in character with Hagrid at this point.
Definitely.
So I still think it's a lame and childish way to be introduced to the world, but it also makes an incredible amount of sense that this is how Hagrid would probably see it.
Yeah, maybe, it's she's factoring this. See, she got us again.
So, J.K. Rowling, you're in the clear, but I hate Hagrid a little bit more now.
So Hagrid is just there to help him out. He's like a really good guy who helps out this old man all day. What do you have against him, sir?
Well, I think he's a danger to our children.
Is this going to go into prejudice against giant territory? Because I don't even think I can comment on that. I'll just let you say what you will and have the audience decide.
Well, while we're talking about bigotry, let's look at Hagrid, who in this very chapter seems to not have a particularly good opinion of muggles.
Yeah, he does seem to fail to imagine Dudley complexly, if that's what you're saying.
Well, I think wizard attitudes toward muggles, like, that's a pretty big thematic thing in later books, and again, this is just another instance where that just hasn't been developed to the extent where it would later be, and so perhaps Jo is not as conscious of it as she might otherwise be.
No, but it's possible that she threw it in there as sort of a taste of things to come, you know?
But from Hagrid?
Yeah, that's the
I could
thing.
understand if Malfoy was making fun, but it's very bizarre to me that Hagrid comes off in this chapter as pretty derogatory towards muggles.
No, but later on, okay, how about in 7, the whole thing with Creature, the reason Creature is messed up is because of wizards. Like, wizards treated him poorly, so maybe this is the same thing where, or seeing muggles as less than, and it's showing that it's very pervasive, and it comes from good people too, because even like Harry said mean things to Creature and whatnot. So just like Hagrid is mean to muggles.
I'm not saying it's unrealistic. I'm saying it perfectly makes sense with Hagrid's character. It just makes me think less of Hagrid. Reading this chapter, I really do not like Hagrid at all. I do not find almost anything likable about Hagrid in this chapter, which is surprising considering this is the chapter where you're introduced to this world of magic that comes to save Harry. I remember liking Hagrid a lot. You know, Hagrid is very much a lovable character in the series. right now I'm struggling to find what's good about Hagrid.
He's hilarious, man. He's really big, you know?
He's a drunken idiot.
My criticism of Hagrid was pretty much entirely in jest. I like Hagrid perfectly fine. I was kidding.
I'm not.
I think Hagrid comes across as good because he comes in and says,
I'm part of the good guys. Come on, Harry.
He certainly does have the role in taking Harry from the Dursleys, which obviously there's the positives associated with that. But as far as actually how he behaves and handles himself, the way he talks and the way he's very temperamental and blundering.
The way he talks?
The way he talks? His accent?
No, like the way he uses derisive terms against muggles, and then just the way a lot of the things he says just does not make me like him. The way he refers to Dursley, first off, how does he even, he acts as if he knows the Dursleys beforehand, which is kind of strange. I think that's not a flaw of Hagrid so much as a flaw of Rowling here, and that one of the first things he says coming in here is,
shut up, Dursley, you great prune.
As if he has some, history of disliking Dursley before this. What's that about?
Oh, I was going to actually bring this up. I mean, they're the letters from no one, and then in this chapter, Hagrid reveals that he was the one taking care to get Harry his letters and whatnot. I still don't know what that all entailed, but it could have been getting close enough to the Dursleys to know enough about them or something, you know?
Yet still assuming that they had told him.
Actually, no, scratch
Yeah.
what I just said.
I don't think Hagrid's really not the type for stealth.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think he's sneaking around Privet Drive in broad daylight, making sure those letters get there.
I'll just reject your idea that he is acting like he knows him. I mean, he's addressing him as though he knows him, but maybe it's just he hears from Dumbledore how Harry's with the Dursleys, and Dumbledore and McGonagall and him talk about how, oh yeah, Harry's going to come here in a couple of years, but right now he's with the Dursleys, and they're these muggles, and remember back in the day, Minerva said, oh, they're such muggles. So he's just he's just a muggle. I can just be mean to him.
But here
Hagrid is kind of mean, you're right.
He doesn't seem to know very much about Harry's situation with the Dursleys.
That's true.
He knows that Harry hasn't opened his letter, and yet at the same time he can't fathom the fact that Harry doesn't know things. And he seems to have this outrageous hatred towards the Dursleys, which as far as we know is based off of nothing, or maybe very little.
I don't know about the outrageous hatred. I mean, to be fair, when he enters the hut, the moment before he called Dursley a great prune, Dursley had a gun pointed at him. Isn't that true?
What if Vernon shot Hagrid? How different would things be?
Is there, I'll answer my own question, there is not, in the entire series, an example of a wizard getting shot. Because, I mean, if you don't die right away, and you can heal yourself, I guess potentially gunshot wounds are not fatal to wizards if they still have their wand with them, unless it's to the head or in the heart. So maybe wizards are just kind of used to not worrying about it? I don't know.
There is evidence in the books that wizards, generally, physical injury is not as much of a problem for wizards, because wizards will take great falls from broomsticks, for instance, in their sports and not be hurt, and it's never explicitly mentioned that oh, well, yeah, you're a wizard, so you do some sort of magic that protects your physical body when it's being attacked. But it could just be a more subtle thing. So I don't know if a gunshot would affect them. I would say, based on that speculation that I've heard about, I'm going to say that a gunshot wound would not be as bad of a thing as it is for muggles.
And then we also have the half-giant here, too, that
totally.
We know, for instance, that Hagrid can, deflect stunning curses off of his chest. Is his skin also somewhat bulletproof, perhaps? I don't know. I don't think that's unreasonable, considering how powerful giants seem to be.
Yeah, I'm imagining that, you're a scientist standing before your fellow scientists presenting this, and then you pull back the curtain and you reveal you have Hagrid, strapped to a pole, and you, pull out your gun. You're this is, such an interesting question. We need to see what happens.
I also think you're sort of sucking the fun out of this what-if scenario, because I'm trying to imagine, okay, we've suddenly got this dead half-giant in this hut on a rock in the sea. Your move, Dumbledore. Your move. What next?
Shit, man. Yeah, so then it becomes this thing where, the Dursleys are holed up on this island with Vernon. The National Guard of Wizards comes out to get Harry back. The National Guard of Wizards. The Wizards National Guard, rather than, the fucking Aurors. So the Aurors come out to get Harry back, but Dursley, he's holed up on this island, and little does anyone else know, this was actually his vacation home as a child, and his family hunted a lot. A lot of big game on this island. So they had all these guns and stuff there, so eventually you just have this standoff with Vernon and the Aurors, and Harry caught in the crossfire, completely confused because he still doesn't know that he's a wizard.
Okay.
I think that's the conclusion to the movie you were suggesting last week about the madness of Vernon Dursley. Now we know how that movie ends.
Well, but how does it end? I mean...
That's true. We're at the standoff. From the standoff, what happens?
Suicide.
No. I think the conclusion is that it actually does end up being about prejudice, just like Harry Potter ended up being about prejudice. You learn that Vernon had this anti-wizard sentiment his whole life because, something that happened in his childhood where he was raped by a wizard. Dumbledore.
No, this thing that happened when he was a child when Voldemort exposed himself to him. Yes.
Yes, and then
Closing the loop.
but then he and Dumbledore have a discussion about this, and many tears are shed. And he eventually realizes that Harry's true path is Hogwarts.